Hey guys, welcome to Factoring When A is Not 1. We're on day 3 of Factoring Trinomials. We're in Unit 6, and our essential question is, how can I rewrite a trinomial into the product of two binomial factors? So there's a little bit of construction going on in the hallway, so if you hear some side noise, then that's probably what it is, so I apologize in advance for that. Okay, so we're going to review. A lot of this is actually the same as just factoring when A is 1. We just really have just bigger numbers. Okay, so we're going to start. What's the standard form of a quadratic? So the standard form of a quadratic, as we hopefully can recall, is ax squared plus bx plus c. Now this is standard form because you always want to start with the highest exponent and go to the lowest exponent. If it's not in standard form, we're going to identify our a, b, and c all wrong. So just a reminder that a, b, and c are numbers. I'm going to try to go through these notes as quickly as possible because a lot of this is exactly the same. But an important thing is that you always check for a GCF. GCF stands for greatest common factor. The reason why we want to check for this at the beginning is because it makes our numbers a little bit smaller, and if we forget to take out a GCF, then our answer technically isn't factored all the way. All right, so we're going to have some steps. The first thing you should always check for when you're factoring trinomials is that you make sure the expression is in standard form. If it's not in standard form, again, your a, b, and c are going to be all wrong. The next step is you want to check for a GCF. After you've checked to see if you've had a standard form, you want to make sure you have a GCF. And if you don't have a GCF, then you move on. So to make a trinomial become 4 terms, we do the AC method. So the only time that you can do the AC method is if you have a trinomial, 3 terms, because you're trying to basically uncombine your like terms and make it 4 terms again. We're undoing the distribution process. Once we have 4 terms, then we're going to factor by grouping, and then that will be the end of our factoring. So what's the difference if A equals 1 and A is not 1? Nothing. You have larger numbers. But that's really the only difference. So it might take some scrolling, and I'll help you get around those obstacles. But our notes are only 4 problems, so we're going to start with number 1, 7r squared plus 8r plus 1. The first thing we want to check for is this in standard form? It is. You want to start with the highest exponent. This exponent is a 1, and this has 0 as its exponent. So you want to make sure it's always the highest to the lowest, because if it's not in that order, when we label our a, b, and c, it's not going to be in the correct order. The next step after standard form is you check. Do we have a GCF? Well, how many terms do I have here? I have 3. Well, what's the largest number I can divide out of all 3 of these? Out of 7, 8, and 1. The largest number I can divide out is a 1. So can I take out any r's? No. So if 1 is the only thing, it's not necessary for me to factor it out because it doesn't really change the expression that I have. Okay, so we're going to do the AC method, and we're going to put b on the bottom. We're going to identify A and B, C in first. A is 7, B is 8, and C is 1. A times C here would be 7 times 1, which is 7, and B is going to be 8. So we're doing exactly the same thing. It's just A is not 1 anymore. Now, if you don't remember, again, you want to do the trick in the calculator. So it's going to be your AC divided by X. In this case, it's 7. And then you're going to do 7 divided by X plus X. And you're going to get a table in your calculator, and you're looking for your B value, which in this case is 8, in the Y2 column. And we're looking for the 2 numbers that are next to that positive 8. So I'm going to go ahead and hop over to the calculator just to refresh you of this trick. And I am holding it, so I'm sorry if it's not super steady. So we're going to go to Y equals, and we're going to type in 7 divided by X, and then 7 divided by X plus X. And we're going to go to our table, which is blue here, so second graph. I'm looking for positive 8 in the red column. So here I see that I have an 8 here. My 2 numbers are 7 and 1. Well, I also see an 8 here, but again, the numbers are still 7 and 1. So those are my 2 magic numbers. So it's going to be 7 and positive 1. So I'm basically uncombining my like terms. So 7r squared remains the same. I have plus 7r plus 1r plus 1. Again, I'm just splitting up my b into 2 terms to make it 4 terms. Once I'm at this step, then I just factor by grouping. And it doesn't matter, again, the order of your 1 and your 7 in the middle here. You can reorder it if you would like. Okay, so I'm going to split this up to factor by grouping. So in my first group, what is the greatest number I can take out? Well, since they're both 7, the largest number I can take out is a 7. Okay, what's the most amount of r's I can take out? 1. So that's my GCF of the first group. And what I have left over is r plus 1. If you're struggling on factoring by grouping still, I'm not going to explain it in depth, so just come see me or make sure you're checking your notes for factoring by grouping. So this part is just review. The largest number I can take out of these is both positive 1. I wouldn't want to take out a negative 1 unless the first term in the group is negative. So this would be positive 1, and then I would have r plus 1. Once I'm at this step, I want to check, do I have matching parentheses? Yes. So then I can move on. So one of my factors is 7r plus 1, and the other one is r plus 1. Is this my final answer? Yeah, because my GCF at the beginning was just 1, so I don't have to write it there. It doesn't make a difference. And then how could I check this? Well, I could check this by double distributing. So let's check this here. 7r times r is 7r squared. 7r times 1 is 7. 1 times r is 7r, I mean. 7r times 1 is 7r. 1 times r is 1r, and then 1 times 1 is positive 1. Well, I have like terms. So I'd have 7r squared plus 8r plus 1. Is that what I started with? Yep. So again, we're undoing all the distribution. Okay, moving on. Number 2. First thing you check for is this in standard form? No, it's not. So if you don't put it in standard form, you're going to accidentally call this negative 43a, and you don't want to. So it's not in standard form. We're going to have to rework this around, and all you got to do is just switch the places around. You don't have to add it to any sides because there are no sides here. There's just one side. So you're just switching and moving things around. Okay, so the next thing I check for is there a GCF? Is there a greatest common factor with my 3 terms here? Well, I can't take out any x's, so I want to check. And if you want to check to see if there's any GCFs, the trick you would do is 5 divided by x, 43 divided by x, and 70 divided by x. Now, I don't need the negative because I'm just looking for the largest number that goes into all 3. And I don't have to factor out a negative because my first term is not negative. Now, I am going to tell you that there is no GCF for this number 2, so we don't have to worry about looking for a GCF because I just told you that there isn't one. But in a couple of examples, we will have one. So that means I can just move on. So if I'm going to move on, I'm going to go ahead and do my AC method here. A times C on top and B on the bottom. Our A here is positive 5, B is negative 43, and C is negative 70. So 5 times negative 70 is negative 350. And B is negative 43. So I need to look for negative 43 in that Y2 column. Okay. Now this might cause some serious scrolling. So in order to do the calculator trick, I would go to Y equals. I would type in negative 350 divided by X and negative 350 divided by X plus X. Sorry, there's people out there, so if you heard some voices. So I'm looking for negative, what was it? Negative 43. Oh, it looks like I didn't have to scroll very far. It's right here. Negative 43 is negative 50 and 7. Now let's say, for example, I did, and I scrolled super, super, super far, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me forever to scroll all the way back to 1. So this is what you want to do. There's a button called Table Set. Now to get to Table Set, it's in blue, so I'd have to hit the second blue button and then Window. Okay? Now this is going to be like our table start. If we want our table to start at positive 1, we would type in positive 1. So you're going to click 1 here, and you'll see the 1 there. So we're going to go to second table, or second graph to see our table, and our table starts back at 1. Well, let's say I want to start at, I don't know, positive 50. Then I would type in 50, see, into our table start here, hit second graph, my table starts at 50. So you can actually tell your table where to start, but I would recommend always keeping it at 1, and there's no problem. So I found negative 43 in the red column. It's negative 50 and 7. All right, so I'm going to go back to the notes here. Negative 50 and 7. So I'm going to have 5x squared, and negative 70 stays the same, and I have negative 50x plus 7x. Again, the order of those two don't matter. You're going to factor by grouping. I'm going to split this into a group. and you're going to find the GCF of the first two terms. That is going to be 5x. That's the largest thing that goes into both. On the inside, 5 divided by 5 is 1, so I just have x left because I had 2. Take away 1x, I have 1x. Minus 10, those x's cancel. Again, I'm not going to super concentrate on grouping here because we've seen this before. The largest thing I take out is a positive 7. My first term is positive, so I'm not going to take out a negative. Okay, my parentheses match. So I'm in good shape so far. And then so one of my factors would be 5x plus 7, and the other one would be x minus 10. All right, moving on. Number 3. First thing I check for is this in standard form? Yes, I have a squared, I have a 1, and then I have 0. So that's all good, it's in standard. Then you want to check for a GCF. Now again, if you want to check for a GCF, that's the trick of doing 40 divided by x, and then 404 divided by x. And then since I have a third number, I would also do that by x, but since these are the same, you don't really have to do it twice. And you're going to look for the largest number that the 3 columns have in common. And I will tell you that the answer to this is 4. The largest GCF they have is going to be 4. Now 2 goes into all of them, but you want to get the largest thing out. So this would be 4 on the outside, so I have a GCF. I'm going to take it out. So now I have 10x squared plus 101x plus 10. All right. So the next step is, once I've taken my GCF out, I have 3 terms, so I'm going to do the AC method. AC on top, B on the bottom. My A is now 10, right? This 4 is not A anymore. I'm taking it out. It's my GCF. So I don't want to forget about it, so I'm going to write it down at the bottom, but I'm going to not worry about it for now. A is 10, B is 101, and C is 10. A times C is 100 because it's AC, and then B is 101. So when I do my trick in the calculator, I'm looking for, right, I'm doing 100 divided by x, and y equals 100 divided by x plus x. And I'm looking for 101 in the y2 column. Well, I don't have to look very far because at 100, I have 101. So 1 and 100 are my 2 magic numbers because 1 times 100 makes 100, and 1 plus 100 makes 101. So you want it to multiply to AC but add to B. So again, I'm going to forget about the GCF for now, so I'm going to pretend like it's not there. But I am going to split up my middle B term here. We're going to factor by grouping. So my GCF of the first 2 is just 1x. So I would take out an x, and I would have 10x plus 1 left. The GCF of the second 2 would be 10, and I can't take out any x's there. This would be x plus 1. Oh, 10x plus 1. Whoops, 100 divided by 10 is 10. So 10x plus 1. And then I have x plus 10, and then I have 10x plus 1 as my other factor. Is this my final answer? No, because what did I take out at the beginning? I took out a positive 4. So you don't want to forget about that GCF you had at the very, very beginning. All right, moving on to number 4, negative 27m squared plus 108m minus 96. The first thing I check for is this in standard form? It is. So then I would go on and move and be like, is there a GCF? So again, you would have to do y equals 27 divided by x, y equals 108 divided by x, and y equals 96 divided by x. You're looking for the largest number that they have in common. I talked about this trick on the greatest common factor day, so just make sure you refresh on that. Now, the largest number that goes into all 3 terms is 3. But because this first term is negative, I have to take out a negative 3. So I would factor out the negative 3. Negative 27 divided by negative 3 is positive 9. Negative 108 divided by 3 is negative 36, so I have 36m. Negative 96 divided by negative 3 is positive 32. All right, so once I have that, I can start my AC method over here. My A value is 9, B is negative 36, and C is 32. A times C is going to be positive 288, and my B is negative 36. So I am looking for negative 36 in my y2 column. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in my calculator. I'm not going to show this part just because at this point we should know how to type it in. I'm looking for negative 36 in the red column. And again, it might take you a while to get there, but you'll get there eventually. So I'm scrolling my calculator still. Okay, I found it. I got negative 12 and negative 24. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm looking for negative 36 in my red column, and it is right there. And the two numbers are negative 12 and negative 24. So I would move on. Now, again, I'm just disregarding the negative 3 GCF from the beginning, but I know it's there. So I'm splitting my b into two terms here. So again, I'm going to remind myself, hey, GCF was negative 3 at the beginning. All right, now that I have four terms, I can factor by grouping. So I'm going to split this in a group. The GCF of the first two, well, the largest number that goes into 9 and 12 is 3. And I can take out, at most, at least 1m. At most 1m, not at least. So I would take out 3m. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and I would have 1m left over. And then negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4, and the m's cancel. In my second group, the largest number I can take out is an 8. But I would take out a negative 8 because that first term in the group is negative. And then I would have negative 24 divided by negative 8 is positive 3. The m brings down because I didn't take any out. 32 divided by negative 8 is negative 4. So that means one of my factors is 3m minus 8, and the other factor is 3m minus 4. Is this my final answer? No, because I got that GCF I took out at the very beginning, so we want to make sure it's there. Because if I were to check this and distribute, I would be missing that negative 3 that I need crucially. All right, well, that is it for when A is not 1. If you have any questions, please feel free to come in and ask.